Hey guys, so it's October. We're covering horror games this month. This one gets pretty dark at times, so definitely listener discretion is advised. We will be covering some pretty graphic things, including suicide, war, a lot of death and murder and torture. So just keep that in mind. And if you're still going to listen, enjoy the show.
Lore Together is proud to be part of the Boss Rush Games network. Feel free to find out more at bossrushgames.com/network. Hi, I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all of the storytelling, world building, and characters of video games because it's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep, and this is episode 46. It's October. It is going to be scary.
Spooky lore.
But before we get into the episode and get into the spookiness, if you'd like to contact us, you can do that on Twitter at Lore Together. You can do that on Instagram also at Lore Together. You can do it through email at loretogether@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast and help us meet some of our goals, including a PS4
Woo!
to do all that, as well as console streaming capabilities, which we really should put in the Patreon. We haven't edited the Patreon to add those yet. We should do that.
Oh, gosh.
But if you'd like to do that, you can do that over on patreon.com/loretogether, where you can also get early access to episodes as well as a upcoming Q&A episode and other discussion episodes.
Yes, I actually have an idea for a mini episode about Animal Crossing.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to try to write that up soon. And it's going to come a lot faster than the last mini
Keith
episode
David.
I worked on.
We should do those at least every other month.
I'm working on it, guys. It's just, this job is, okay, I work at a startup, okay? It's hard. It's hard.
So, on to the episode. So, episode 46.
Yeah, you didn't tell me what this is. All you told me was that it's going to be spooky.
Well, here's the thing. When I mention anything more specific about this game, you are going to probably instantly pick up on it.
Okay.
Probably the only thing I can get by with is telling you the year, 2002.
Okay.
As soon as I name a company involved, you're going to be like...
You hope so after all of that setup.
I believe you might have played this game.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2002, Silicon Knights released a game through Nintendo...
Oh.
called Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite spooky games, although I've never beaten it.
Yes, I do remember that, because I actually, and so in college, I dated a gamer who had really liked this game and really liked a lot of the things it does to just play mind tricks with the player. So it's kind of, it's almost meta. It goes beyond the fourth wall, so to speak, of the television that you're playing the game on. Right.
And the game, despite that reputation, the game is less jump scares and more psychological horror.
Well, that's the whole point of it, is that it's about messing with the player's perception of the game more than even messing with the player character's perception of the world in the game. Because it spans over like centuries of storytelling.
And how much of that story do you know?
Not a lot.
Okay.
No.
It's inspired by the likes of H.P. Lovecraft. So we're dealing with ancient forces and aliens and that stuff.
Okay, so there's like the juggernauts of American horror are like H.P. Lovecraft and Stephen King. So almost anything that's kind of like in those realms almost always touches one of those.
Right. As you said, the game makes extensive use of what are called Sanity Effects, and these are actually a patented thing by Nintendo.
Oh, it's patented.
That's why you haven't seen any other games really use it. This idea of a character's sanity like causing problems in the real world is a patented idea by Nintendo.
Wait, but then if other games, so there are other games that have been released on other consoles that have alternate reality games, and that hasn't touched on that patent?
No, it's a very specific patent, but it's why you haven't seen probably a sequel to Eternal Darkness.
Interesting.
At least not under the name Eternal Darkness. We're not going to get into the development history of Silicon Knights and their fall, I guess you could say.
Is this a problematic fall that I'm just not recalling?
Not entirely. There was a lot of legal... we'll touch on it briefly. There was a lot of legal wrangling after they split from Nintendo.
Oh.
They worked on a game called Too Human for the Xbox 360.
Right.
And eventually they ended up suing Epic, the creators of the Unreal Engine, over licensing fees and stuff and all this stuff. And basically, from what I can understand, Silicon Knights ended up losing that lawsuit.
Oh.
They only produced like one game around that time, and then they closed doors. Dennis Dyack, the designer of Eternal Darkness, started up another company. He starts up a lot of companies, it seems. But he was going to do another game that's like a spiritual successor to Silicon Knights, but it didn't get the Kickstarter level.
Oh, yeah.
And then there was some other drama with like somebody on the team was convicted or arrested or something for either like some sexual abuse or...
Ooh, bad.
Yeah, it got really bad really quickly, and unfortunately, this game being as interesting as it is as in a world, it just doesn't seem to have the fan following to really push it for like Kickstarter and stuff. And when you have those types of problems on top of it,
yeah. Well, this ex of mine, which I should say, like if I saw him in public, we'd be cool. But that also was into the other kind of like darling that doesn't get enough attention, which is Psychonauts. Of that same era.
Which just got a sequel.
Yeah, now. It took... How long did that take? Yeah. So I just want to say I was hanging out with people who were into more esoteric games and not just into the mainstays.
I mean, we're still waiting for Beyond Good and Evil 2.
We are. So. We all are. I wouldn't be surprised if he was into that one too. But yeah, so that's how I know it. That was also the same guy who introduced me to Fatal Frame, which has...
a series that I was debating on doing, but I had no way of recording it.
Right.
So I think the only one that we could even potentially access would be the one for the Wii.
Yeah, because of the emulator situation. I played it, and it is a very interesting way to talk about horror. And this was a guy who was super into film, so it doesn't surprise me that these are the kind of video games that he was more drawn to. Meanwhile, that's when I was playing Dark Cloud just a freaking dungeon junkie, like bah, 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 bah. Anyway, so coming back from the past of when Safi was in college.
So probably one of the more famous Sanity Effects that the Sanity Effects affected the characters as well. The characters you're controlling, but they also affected the players. And there's one that was very famous, which was it would go back to a mock-up of the GameCube. This was on GameCube, by the way.
Yes.
This is Nintendo's first ever M-rated title.
That's right, I forgot. It was groundbreaking in a lot of different ways.
And actually started work on the Nintendo 64.
Oh.
Like, you can find pictures of it on the 64.
Well, that makes sense, considering how it looked on the GameCube. That makes sense.
It looked better on the GameCube, though.
It did.
There was this scene where it would flash back to the GameCube main menu. It would like be a mock-up of the main menu, and it would have the message, your GameCube memory card is corrupted.
Yes. Yeah, that was the biggest one where people were like, that's part of the game. It's like, oh yeah, that's part of the game, sir.
Yeah.
So.
The game story itself, we're going to go through the whole story. There's going to be a lot of characters. Mm-hmm. And the chapters found in the game are not in chronological order. They bounce around all over the place.
That's what I remember of it. Because it's supposed to be, it's essentially like a curse that follows throughout time, if I remember correctly. Something like that?
There's multiple arcs that are based on location. So there's a location, and that is presented in chronological order, but it's mixed in with the other locations and stories and stuff.
Okay.
So you start way back in the early days, and the further you get in the game, the further you are to the present, but you're still bouncing around because you're bouncing locations and stuff.
Okay.
We're going to take all that timeline stuff away.
Oh.
And we're going to focus on one arc, another arc, another arc.
So we're breaking up the timeline.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's easier to talk about this in location arcs than it is to talk about the timeline. Because otherwise it gets really confusing about who's dealing with what.
Right, exactly.
But we will start in 2000 AD with Alexandra Roives.
Alexandra Roives?
Yes.
Props to giving a name that is a good mix of common but not too common.
Which one?
Well, the combination of Alexandra, a name that we know, but, extended to make it a little bit more formal, and then Roives. You don't hear that last name a lot.
It's literally savior backwards.
Okay, now I'm mad. Now I'm mad.
Which is something that one of the characters comments on, actually. If it is a bad joke, it's tongue-in-cheek.
I hope so.
Alexandra Roives is voiced by Jennifer Hale, who is featured in quite a few games we've covered now.
Oh, man. She's everywhere. A lot of voice actors. Once you're good at it,
She's
you're
probably one of the
everywhere.
most prolific ones. And we've covered a few games with her already. Guild Wars.
Guild
She
Wars,
is...
yeah.
Well, not Guild Wars 1, but the Guild Wars
2.
franchise. In Guild Wars 2, she is the Sylvari female player character. She's Queen Jenna. She's Samus Aran from Metroid Prime, specifically.
Yes.
And she is obviously Commander Shepard.
Female Shepard.
Yeah.
So she's everywhere, it feels like. She's super talented. There was like a fundraising tabletop Mass Effect game that she was in, and she decided she wanted to play a Solarian, and she just had the most adorable, like, squeaky dork voice for it. It was great.
Speaking of which, actually, in Guild Wars 2, I ran across a character with my friend who plays a Sylvari female player character. Mm-hmm. And we ran across this character that I'm like, I know that name. I know that commander, because you're a commander in Guild Wars 2 when you get to a certain point in the storyline. I'm like, I know that commander. I know that tone. Mm-hmm. And I looked it up, and it's Kimberly Brooks, who played Ash Williams in Mass Effect. So,
gosh.
You can, if you play your cards right, you can have you can have Kimberly Brooks talking to Jennifer Hale in Guild Wars 2.
That's too funny. That is hilarious.
So anyway, we're not going to go into all the voice actors. I just thought that was funny because we just covered Guild Wars. We just covered Mass Effect not too long ago. She's in Dragon Age also.
Yes.
Which most people don't know that she plays Krem, who is trans.
Oh, yeah. I forgot that. I did not realize she played Krem, though. You're right.
She plays Krem, yeah.
That's awesome. She did a good job. I hope the trans community doesn't mind that it wasn't a trans guy.
There is a lot of work that went into Krem. Like, there was a lot of writes and rewrites and voice acting work to find a tone that was going to match Krem's trans status.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not, but I'm trying to get across that
Krem's the depth of Krem's identity was put in thought, it sounds like. Okay. Which the Dragon Age team in particular over at BioWare is pretty good about trying to make sure the representation is key.
And then you have that drag queen in Dragon Age 2 that just came across as a joke.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah. It happens. Anyway, so
let's move on.
Yeah, we can talk about Jennifer Hale forever, but this is not the Jennifer Hale podcast.
No. So Alexandra Roives is awoken at 3:33 in the morning by a call from Inspector LeGrasse of the Rhode Island Police.
3:33. So a lot of times people like to use this in reference of it's half of 666. This happened in the first iteration in the Unknown Armies tabletop RPG that I played in college. All these flashbacks to college.
That's a phrase I haven't heard of Unknown Armies in years from you.
So when Mystic met me, I was still very into that game, but I kind of fizzled out from that and moved on to different systems. They have a third or fourth edition now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So we're going to call her Alex. Alex soon finds herself returning to her family's estate, which is in Rhode Island. Edward Roives, her grandfather and only living relative, has been found brutally murdered.
Okay, so we're starting with something that's similar to a Clue game at this point.
Yeah.
We're talking East Coast, big money, big mansion, probably secrets. There's going to be a rope in the dining room with what. And
it's a weird scene. And mild spoiler, I can tell you later. Or cut spoiler, I should say. She gets the call at 3:30 in the morning. She takes the next flight out.
Okay.
We don't know where she is. I think she's in Washington.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know if that's DC or the state though. I don't know if that's ever made clear.
Oh, okay.
But either way, next flight out is still going to be a few hours, right?
Maybe.
Well, you have to still travel to the airport. You have to get the ticket. You have to fly.
So this was wait. What year did this release?
2000. So this came out in 2002, but 2000 is when this part takes place.
Okay.
Which I know what you're about to say, and you're right.
Yeah, that's. I mean, For those of you who are not in the know, possibly even due to your age at this point, historical events may have made it a lot harder to go into an airport than it was before. Prior to September 11th of 2001, my family was known to meet like family friends who would fly in. Like you could get
at the gate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You not only that, we had friends who like they moved around a lot because one of them was, I think, a professor. Yeah, he was doing a lot of neuroscience research. So they'd fly in, we'd hang out in the airport, and then they'd fly out. And we were able to hang out in the airport with them and like eat dinner at a restaurant with them.
Yeah.
Like this was a thing you would do on the regular.
Right. Fair. So,
Yeah.
But she gets there. It has to be at least a couple hours. You know, it has to be some time.
Okay, I would willing to concede that it would be like 5 a.m. Maybe.
There are still cops there. Well, if she's from D.C., at 5 a.m. I'll grant you. Mm-hmm. There's still cops there. Fine.
I mean, like she would have left the airport at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like she would have left in the airplane at 5 a.m.
Yeah. So there's still cops there, which fine. I understand there being cops there. He's still there with his cup of coffee, and it just kind of feels like she just walked across the street when the scene picks up again. It just feels really weird. Huh. And he's like, the whole thing is really weird because he's like,
wait, and he is who again? Who are we talking about?
Inspector Legrasse
is still there with his cup of coffee.
Yeah, his cup of coffee.
Okay.
And he has like this weirdness to him. It's kind of hard to explain, but they literally pointed out in an early thing, like, oh yeah, watch people who have weird mannerisms like Inspector Legrasse. The reason for this is that he was supposed to be a bad guy and that part was cut.
Oh, wow.
So
interesting.
But
so now he's just a red herring.
Right. So she identifies the body at the scene.
No, that's not how you do that, guys. It's not.
And his head is missing.
I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, he's like covered with a sheet. There's no head, and like his hands are out, and she can see the family ring, and like that's how she identifies it.
But wait, okay. Record scratch. There's a problem with using a ring to identify a body. I think you can understand what I'm about to say. Like this, and historically has been an issue. So. But
it's also intro to a game. Story is important at this point in the gaming history. Like it's starting to become, it is to the point where we're getting really good RPGs, really good stuff.
Right.
But you still have to get to the gameplay. So some things, let's speed this up for time, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Then we jump to 2 weeks later. And the investigation has found nothing. And so Alex is going to start investigating.
Is she a PI of any sort? Like, what's her background?
Her background is abstract mathematics and number theory.
Okay, so, like, I remember CBS had a mystery-solving show called Numbers, so I guess it's possible.
Right. And it is Washington, specifically, not Washington, D.C.
So she flew in from the state. Yeah, there's
no way.
He could still be drinking coffee at, like, noon, 1, 2 o'clock in the
But it's
afternoon.
like night. So it's just weird. It just feels, When you show up, it's like night, or it's like really early morning or really late night.
Maybe that was the soonest her flight could come in from Washington State. Like it literally took 12 hours.
But there's still like a cop car with lights going outside and stuff, which feels weird to me. Like, it just feels weird.
Okay, yeah, it can feel weird. It can still feel weird. It can still feel weird.
So she starts investigating the house at this point. Like, there's got to be something here that can provide some clue to something.
So they've already cleared the crime scene, and she's able to walk around it in 2 weeks. And I guess in 2 weeks, that would make sense. That
And eventually, she stumbles across a secret room. Literally, like rotate clock hands, and a part of the wall opens, and the clock hands have to be put to 3:33.
Bum bum bum.
Yeah, it won't be the first time.
But she got the call at 3:33.
Right.
Wait, it would be, if I was writing a story, it'd be interesting if she got the call and she came in and there was the murder and they're like, oh yeah, I'm glad you got here so quickly. But the problem then was that nobody called her. Nobody reported the murder until like she was on the plane.
Yeah. And the only thing that happens before she gets the phone call, like the first thing you actually do is you're in combat, the very first thing, but it's a dream sequence.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, they got to
Yeah.
give you the tutorial somehow.
Where you
so-
see her grandfather being like, "Remember me?" And then, it flashes and the phone's ringing.
Okay. All right. Maybe that's some ritual stuff happening.
Yeah, I don't know. So she stumbled across a secret room containing a book bound in human skin
Gross.
called the Tome of Eternal Darkness.
Oh, there we go. There's the title, guys. Did you see it? On the nose, there's the title.
Now, deciding to read it, would you ever read a book bound in human skin?
No, I'd call the cops again. Hey, coppers, I understand you were just here, but I found a tome bound in human flesh. You probably want the FBI. Just letting you know.
So she reads it and finds it contains accounts of various people in the past, beginning with the story of Pius Augustus. Now, Alex's story is a framing device.
Okay.
For the most part. She has a chapter at the very end.
Okay.
But sure, she is the one who is finding these stories that we will play through.
Okay.
And it's always things that she learns in the story can help her unlock the next chapter. It's that type of thing.
Okay.
Pius Augustus, a respected Roman military commander, is sent by the emperor, likely not literally the emperor, but like he got orders.
Yeah.
And at this time, it is 26 BC, so the emperor is Caesar Augustus. Mm-hmm. Just barely. I think he started in 27. So
Caesar Augustus. So, yeah, and obviously Augustus was all about making big moves. He was first named Octavio, and people would be like, Octavian, excuse me, not Octavio. He's first named Octavian, and for those of you uninitiated, that literally meant eighth son.
right.
So kind of like
Let me shuffle loose of this.
like I've had so many children I can't keep up anymore. You know.
So anyway, Pius is sent to ancient Persia to locate an important relic. He's talking with his men after a victorious battle, giving them orders to take care of their men, basically make sure they have water, make sure they get rest.
Okay, so he's kind of like the I forget who's the person that helps with supplies out in the.
No, he's a centurion. He's like tactician leader. Like he is.
Oh,
yeah.
But one of his charges is making sure everybody's well taken.
He's
care
telling
of.
them make sure they're taken care of. Make sure.
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And his men start walking off, and Pius hears strange voices in the distance. Literally, it's like Pius Augustus.
Oh, this is where the creep factor comes in. Just whispering in your ear.
And he just starts walking in their direction.
Oh, somebody's calling my name. Obviously, I have to respond.
And he walks into this ring of stones.
Into it?
Yeah, there's like this ring of standing stones. He walks into it. There's a bunch of energy, and it just zaps him into this middle of this.
Considering like the kind of culture that was happening in Rome, they definitely liked their rituals.
Yeah.
Why and so did the people they warred against. So why would you just offhandedly be like, let me walk into this stone circle? There's no way this could be a trap. No
Right.
way. Oh,
And
my
it's kind of
Lord.
interesting. So Psychonauts did a lot of research on historical figures, on how people dress, all that stuff. I'm not going to say it's 100% accurate.
Yeah.
But they got into fights with people who, like some of the media or commenters and stuff of the day,
Yeah.
that Pius has a, like the frill or whatever, the feather or whatever thing on the top of his head.
Yeah.
They say it's facing the wrong way, and they say, no, this is accurate for the exact year it takes place in. This is the style that they had of armor at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they, I'm not going to say it's like Kingdom Come Deliverance, where they're like, we made this wholly accurate, but they tried to make at least representations of all these historical figures somewhat accurate.
So they found one thing that was truly unique for the time, and they made sure it was accurate there. But that doesn't mean they caught every little detail.
Right.
Okay.
So Pius goes into this, the ring. He gets zapped by energy and ends up in this underground temple complex called the Forbidden City.
Ooh, it's forbidden. Ooh.
Eventually, he comes across 3 artifacts that are each floating on like an altar.
Floating. So they're not.
Yeah.
They're not just sitting on the pedestal.
They're floating like a little bit above, slowly rotating.
Oh man, but now you're stuck. I'm sorry, if you're the kind of person who's just gonna like offhandedly walk into a ritual circle without even thinking twice about it, yeah, You're
Right.
now going to be in the floating altar pieces puzzle.
It should be noted that we are bypassing combat and we are bypassing puzzles. There are minor puzzles in this game.
Yeah,
It's the do you have a key for this door puzzle type stuff.
Part of me just expects Alilu to come in and start saying she has a multi-pass. Like, this is very Fifth Element-esque, which is also borrowing from other stories older and older.
Right. Each of these artifacts is the essence of a powerful godlike being referred to as ancients. Upon attempting to touch one of the artifacts, and you can only pick one, Pius finds himself corrupted by its power, whereupon he ends up pledging his allegiance to the artifact's respected ancient and begins working on summoning them into the universe.
So it's basically you will decide which ancient Pius is going to be fielded to, essentially.
One of the other artifacts represents the ancient that is stronger than Pius's, and the other represents the ancient that is weaker than Pius's. Now let's get into these ancients before we continue this story, because people are like, who are the ancients?
Who are the ancients?
The ancients are aliens. You know, this is like H.P. Lovecraft, where Cthulhu was an alien who ended up being on Earth.
Was H.P. Lovecraft aliens, or was they just things beyond understanding of human competence?
My understanding was they're aliens. I could be wrong on that. I am not an H.P. Lovecraft fan. I'm not saying I'm not a fan, but I'm not into it.
Okay,
well enough.
So feel free, fans, to correct us if we're wrong, because neither one of us has read H.P. Lovecraft. I personally just didn't feel compelled to do it. It's not my kind of literature.
Right. We played a couple Lovecraft-themed games. And
nor is a good chunk of it anything that I'm not going to be just unabashedly offended by, because the guy had some problematic beliefs when he was writing his literature, regardless of where he was before the end of his life. So, but my understanding of H.P. Lovecraft is not that they're necessarily alien as in from outer space, but they are alien as in they are unknowable to the humans that they are essentially.
That could be. I could have misread.
Controlling. Yeah.
But either way, the ancients in this are alien beings, as far as I know.
Well, in this story particular, yeah.
And 3 or 4, we'll get to that in a second, of them have been expelled from this universe.
Okay.
They are Ulyaoth. Mm-hmm. They each have a color and a aspect that they represent. So Ulyaoth is blue and represents magic.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Chaturga.
I should say, you're a wizard, Pius.
Chaturga is red and represents power.
Red and power, yeah. Makes
and
sense.
Zelatath is green and represents sanity.
He doesn't represent chewing gum with a name like that?
Zelatath?
Yeah.
Zelatath is also female, if I remember correctly.
They definitely sound like a chewing gum ingredient.
There's also apostrophes in 2 of them.
Well, yeah, that's very H.P. Lovecraft indeed. You're not supposed to be able to pronounce half these
They
things.
are elsewhere in the universe, outside the universe. It's hard to figure out exactly, because we're talking unknowable things here at this point.
Right, exactly.
There's a 4th, Mantarok, who is purple, and who does have a presence on Earth, and acts as a bit of a guardian of the other 3. Mantarok is also more benevolent towards humanity.
Okay.
Kind of. Like, Mantarok was at one point a fertility god
Whoa.
for the Khmer.
All right. Okay.
But its benevolence may be more a result of it keeping the other 3 in check, not due to its own desires, which may be more bad news for humanity in the long run. We don't know.
Right, exactly.
There is a 5th ancient whose color is yellow, but we know absolutely nothing else about them.
They are just alluded to.
No, there's no alluding to it. They have literally just said, somebody just asked the developers at one point, what's with the yellow energy? And it's like, oh, that's another ancient. That's it. That's all we know. Yellow. That's it.
Well, sometimes you don't need to explain the whole story to that.
I'm assuming that's going. We'll touch on that again later.
Okay.
The 3 main ancients we deal with are basically rock, paper, scissors. They are each weak to one of the other 2 and strong to the other of the 2.
Okay.
Mantarok is basically an equalizer and is neither strong nor weak to any specific ancient.
Okay, so he brings balance to the force, essentially.
Right.
Okay.
And here's why this makes sense that we have to break it down by location, because what ties the stories of these characters together beyond location is the artifact that they are dealing with, because there's 3 artifacts.
Right.
And so the first artifact we're going to touch on, the artifact representing the weaker ancient compared to the one Pius picks. This is why it's harder to go by timeline.
Okay.
Remains in the Forbidden City.
Okay.
A young Persian swordsman named Karim ventures into the Forbidden City to locate a treasure for a woman named Chandra that he loves. Literally, he says that all he can think of is her. Like, she is what he dreams of.
So he's so absolutely lovesick. There's just no other way.
And he asks her, what must he do to have her? And she basically sends him to find this treasure that she seeks, or she has visions of. And it's an artifact. She doesn't know this.
Because all she's doing is dreaming about it.
Right.
It's probably the power of the artifact being like, you're weak, susceptible, and you're kind of on the liminal plane. Come to me, get me.
So Karim goes to the Forbidden City, gets into the same area that Pius was in, basically, and does eventually find this artifact. But as he finds it, Chandra actually appears to him.
Oh.
She has died since he left on his quest. She grew tired of waiting for him.
What?
Basically, she said, I'll wait for you, but she grew tired of waiting. This is not like a short trip. Like, he's been walking through the desert and stuff. And so she had a relationship with a nobleman. She paid the price.
Right.
With her life.
Oh.
And her beauty.
Uh-oh.
A mistress of the nobleman had her flensed, which is basically skinned.
Oh, this is the part of the episode where Safi wants to puke.
And her specter actually shifts from, like, her beautiful form to her mutilated one.
Yeah, that
to the point that, like, she asks Karim, like, she goes, I understand in death what is at stake and what the artifact actually is, and I need you to stay with me to defend it.
Oh, and my gosh.
And he's like, he literally has the line, you don't look so beautiful anymore, you don't look so good anymore, or anything.
Oh, man.
But in the end, he does give in to her kiss of death. Like, literally by kissing her, he dies.
Okay.
In order to remain as a specter guard for the artifact.
Wow. That is also just gross. So gross. Oh.
Later on, in the Middle Ages, Pius returns to Persia to construct a pillar of flesh at the Forbidden City as part of his master's plans.
A pillar of flesh sounds like a lot of murder.
Yes. I'm going to butcher names, and I apologize. Roberto Bianchi, a Venetian architect traveling through the region, is captured by Pius's men when Pius is appearing as Timur, or Tamerlane, who is the first emperor of the Timurid Empire. This goes into history I had no idea of.
Okay.
I literally fell down a little Wikipedia hole earlier today looking into this.
Hey, I love it when games can educate us on real things.
While under an involuntary servitude inspecting the foundations of this pillar, he encounters the spirit of Karim, who entrusts him with the artifact in his possession.
Uh-oh. That's no good.
It should be noted that these artifacts are kind of pseudo-ethereal.
Okay.
Sometimes they are actual things you hold.
Okay.
Or have in a case. And sometimes it's a thing that's, like, in your body.
Ooh.
Or part of your spirit.
Yikes.
So it gets weird. You just kind of have
I mean, like, I want permission before you push that kind of baggage on me. That's all I ask.
Keep that in mind.
Oh, yikes.
Soon after he gets his artifact, though, Roberto is buried alive, along with many others, under tons of concrete in the pillar of flesh. Literally, like, you see him on the outside of the pillar, like...
Yep, that's what I thought, that pillar of flesh was going to mean a lot of dead people in a pillar.
Centuries later, a Canadian firefighter named Michael Edwards works with his team to extinguish several major oil fires in the Middle East following the end of the Gulf War.
Oh, a war that ends. That just feels so novel for me as a citizen of the United States.
I don't think it ever ends.
War never changes.
After an explosion at the oil well killed his entire team and trapped him in the Forbidden City, basically it collapses.
Yikes.
He is approached by Roberto's spirit, who gives him the artifact and instructs him to take it to the Roives family estate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think it's quite exactly the Roives family estate. If I remember correctly, it's like take it to, and it's kind of like a cryptic version that like Edwards works out, if I remember correctly, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, like, that makes sense, because what it means to a Venetian of that century who's working for
Right.
Pius is going to be totally different than what it means to a Canadian firefighter who's
Right.
volunteering overseas.
Michael then moves to destroy the Forbidden City with an enhanced bomb. Basically, he has magically enhanced C4.
Oh, my.
Yeah. A few months later, Michael delivers the artifact to Edward Roivers in secret, literally like on a street corner, like, here, take it, telling him that he, quote, won't last the night.
Oh.
Though Michael's ultimate fate is actually unknown. So there's this thing, when you first encounter the Tome of Eternal Darkness with each character, they go to a place called the Hall of the Tome of Eternal Darkness. It's kind of like this ethereal nether space that's basically this stone. It's hard to describe, actually. There's a walkway
Yeah.
that is stone,
Okay.
but the stones scream. Like, the closer you get to the book, the stones have faces and they're screaming.
Okay, so that's some supernatural stuff
Yeah.
that I'm not comfortable with.
And there's statues for each person who was, an adversary of the ancients who the ancients killed. His statue isn't there. So there's this idea that he didn't die by their hand, but given his statement and the horrors that he's glimpsed and all this stuff and the genre we're dealing with.
Maybe not lasting the night didn't mean he was being chased by an exterior demon, but maybe more of
Many theorize he probably took his own life.
an inner demon sort of situation.
Interesting note, Michael Edwards originally was going to be a soldier from the Gulf War, but this was changed after the events of 9/11.
Yeah, I think that's a
There was also another character who was cut, who was a knight from the Crusades.
Oh. Yeah. Yes, we'd want to cut that.
So finally, Edward has the artifact for the weaker of the three.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the artifact representing the stronger ancient has been moved by Pius to Oubliette Cathedral in Amiens, France.
So wait, like, and oublier is like the verb in French oublier, which is to forget.
No idea.
Are we trying to forget that this exists?
Possibly. And that could be
Yeah.
that could be an interesting joke they put in.
Yeah.
In order to prevent it from being used against him. So yeah, obviously.
Ignore me! It's kind of like that.
First, though, Pius orders the assassination of Charlemagne the Frank, so his movement cannot impede Pius's plans. A Frank messenger named Anthony plays an unwitting pawn in this plot, being given a cursed scroll to give to Charlemagne for his eyes only. Anthony opens a scroll
Of course he does. Like, who wouldn't at that
and
point?
is cursed with like this corrosive curse that slowly eats him as you
Play his character.
Yeah.
He's being, oh, man.
and he looks normal at first after being cursed, but like each time like it hurts him, he like gets up and he's shuffling or he's like in pain, and he starts
man.
looking really rough. He travels to the then small monastery in order to warn Charlemagne of the danger to his life. Unfortunately, despite Anthony's best efforts, he arrives too late to save him and dies from the spell he was afflicted with. When the location is a newly constructed cathedral, Pius Augustus makes another appearance and summons a creature called the Black Guardian to protect the artifact that could defeat his master. A Franciscan monk named Paul Luther, visiting the region to view a holy relic at the cathedral, finds himself accused of murdering a fellow monk by the local Inquisition.
The Inquisition. I'm sorry, the History of the World song is stuck in my head now.
Attempting to clear his name, he explores the cathedral, uncovering some of the evil at work, including a resurrected Anthony now in service of the Ancient.
Oh, okay.
It's a little weird because he gets up being like, Charlemagne. So it's like, are they playing with his mind or is he just twisted now? You know?
Right, are they tricking him into thinking he can still save Charlemagne?
Right.
That's a really interesting interpretation of that.
However, in the end, the monk encounters the Black Guardian, which promptly kills him by stepping on him or making his head explode, depending on what ancient Pius is aligned to.
I'm crushing your head. I'm crushing your head.
It is a pretty graphic scene.
Yeah, that sounds pretty graphic. I mean, not to make light of murder, but, you know, the kids in the hall joke still came to my mind.
During World War I,
Great. Oh my gosh, all this time jumping.
Oblique Cathedral is converted into a field hospital. Peter Jacob, a field reporter making accounts about the war, notes that patients have been disappearing as of late. He
How
notices
do you lose patients of war?
He notices a nurse carting off a still living soldier as if they are dead.
Yeah, that's how you lose them. Yep.
Finding this suspicious, he ventures into the catacombs, basically going lower into the cathedral, and finds himself encountering the Black Guardian. He defeats it, thanks to modern technology and magic,
Yep.
recovering the artifact it was guarding. It's heavily implied, it's not outright stated, but it's heavily implied that Pius and the Ancients orchestrated at least the Battle of the Somme, if not all of World War I,
Whoa. What?
for the Black Guardian to be satisfied with its feeding, as it had been starting to grow restless with the lack of corpses.
Wow. That's crazy.
But we're talking, like, Pius at this point is alive for over 2,000 years.
Well, yeah, obviously.
Working only for, like, 26 BC, he finds the Ancient.
Yes.
2000 AD, we start our game.
Right. I just find that interesting. It's like, hey, yeah, I orchestrated to make sure that Franz Ferdinand did go down that wrong street to get assassinated, so we could have World War One.
Could just be the fact that let's be honest, Franz Ferdinand dying was a spark that blew off a powder keg that was going to go off anyway, probably.
I mean,
we'll never know.
Fair. It's just such a. So, do you know the story of how that assassination attempt happened?
Yeah, it was a lot of pure coincidence that people were they were going down that street.
The guy who was going to do it gave up and went to have a sandwich, and then literally in the middle of a sandwich looks up with like probably at least a letter in his mouth and like, "Oh, dude, I can do this now." It makes no sense.
Yeah. 69 years later, Edward Roives is visited by a now elderly Peter Jacob, who gives an account of his experience before handing over the artifact in his possession.
So now the question is, Edward Roives.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he the magnet for all this weird stuff?
There's this idea of them being a chosen line, savior, backward, whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, Edward Roives has been looking into this ever since finding the Tome of Eternal Darkness himself. So he's kind of like looking into it so people find him.
How did he find the Tome of Eternal Darkness?
We'll get there.
Okay, and I guess the question that won't be answered is, how is he the weirdo who thinks it's okay to keep a tome made of human flesh in your home?
I mean, he's not the only one.
Yeah, but he's the only one without an evil plot, and I'm like just really confused here.
So Edward now has the artifact from Peter, and the fate of Peter, like Michael Edwards, is unknown, but presumed better than Michael Edwards.
Yeah, it sounds, well, also considering the other trauma going on with World War I,
right?
It's probably easier to kind of lump in his trauma with everything else that happened with the war and get some help with it.
But Michael Edwards definitely is suffering from some effects, as we said, because of what he says. Peter Jacob is also suffering effects. He has had chronic insomnia ever since he got this thing.
Okay.
And he's also been looking into it. He's taken to experts who haven't told him anything.
Okay.
But he wrote this book about his experiences in the battle, which is where we get this implication of the battle being orchestrated. And that's how Edward Roives finds out about him.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like that this journalist had an outlet.
Right.
Whereas this firefighter did not.
Either didn't or we don't know his fate.
We are only making assumptions at this point. That's fair.
But like Michael Edwards, Peter is one of the few who does not have a statue in the Hall of the Tome of Eternal Darkness, which means the Ancients didn't kill him.
Right.
So
that's good.
And he lived 70 years after his experience.
Right.
Roughly. So at least.
Right.
While the two other artifacts are fought over between Pius and several unwitting souls, the corpse god Mantarok has an artifact of its own.
Oh.
In the Middle Ages, Pius travels to a temple in Angkor Thom, Cambodia, in order to deal with Mantarok.
Whoa, we are like all over the place now. So
Yeah.
we've been to Rome, we've been to the Middle East.
We have not been to Rome,
Well, okay, we've been in the Roman Empire,
but Persia.
Persia. So we've been to Persia, where the Forbidden City was. We've been to.
That's it.
No, we had.
Oh, sorry. No, you're right. France.
Been to France.
Yeah.
So
My brain just shut off for a second.
I was
Apologies.
gonna say, yeah, we definitely were in Europe if we're talking about World War One. And then
Well, World War I was also in Africa and stuff, so.
okay, that's I mean,
I get it. I'm just.
yeah.
So we're going all over the place, yeah.
What? So now we've been to Cambodia. So like now we're in parts of kind of South-ish Asia. I forget exactly where Cambodia is, unfortunately.
A young Khmer slave girl, a court dancer named Elia from Suyavamen II's court, finds herself trapped within the temple at the same time that he's there. Mm. Somehow, she has the Tome of Eternal Darkness and is just reading it like an adventure book.
Wait, what? Nobody explains how she got it?
No, we have... Everyone else has to go through like this horrific hallway. Like, other than her and Pius, everyone has to find the book.
So
but we have no idea how she finds it.
That sounds like some of that intervention from that guy who's keeping things balanced, just kind of like, oh, I dropped this. Oh, my, oh gosh, are you going to, I couldn't have I'll leave you to it. What? Kello,
All right.
I can't imagine.
Are you done?
No.
You're not even drunk.
No, I'm just enjoying this episode.
Like, we have no idea how she got this book.
That's
She is literally sitting on the ground, like just flipping through it and like reciting quotes and literally yearning for like, why can't something that fantastic happen to me? Well, be careful what you wish for.
Oof, yeah, that's a horrible wish. Does she get turned into a monster or something?
Well, she gets trapped. The temple like doors close.
Like a genie wish. It's like, I wish for a fantastical adventure, and here's what you get.
And while trying to find her way out, she is approached. Basically, she goes through a bunch of different levels and stuff, and falls down a couple shafts, and there's traps and stuff. Like it's like crushing walls and everything. It's weird. Mm-hmm. And she is approached by one of Mantarok's servants, who walks kind of funny, but who entrusts her with the task of protecting the ancient's essence within her body. Basically, there's this heart that's just sitting there beating, and it just like she's just holding it, and it just like right into her chest.
Oh, hi, nice to meet you. We're friends now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's nobody asked for that.
And Pius kills her shortly after in the chamber of Mantarok. Mantarok is basically this giant, purple, tentacly looking thing with a lot of eyes and a lot of mouths. And Pius is there just to do this ritual that's going to stab it with a bunch of spikes, and it's going to slowly die.
Slowly kill Mantarok.
Basically, kill the one thing that's stopping me from bringing my guy out.
Yeah.
You know? And Pius kills her and doesn't take the heart, which is weird. It is possible he doesn't know.
Yeah, that's what my only assumption would be
for
that.
With Zelatath, he can read minds.
But does she know what she's carrying?
That's fair. It's also noted, I don't know if I mentioned this explicitly, like Pius appears as different people. He's able to like change his look.
Well, he has to if he's like a Roman guy from Persia who's suddenly also showing up in France and in Cambodia. Like, he's not going to look like the locals.
Well, he does in some of those. He looks like himself because he's not around other people, but he is Tamerlane. He is the guy who is the emperor who was running all over Persia.
Right.
He is the bishop who is in charge of the cathedral when you go with Anthony to the cathedral.
Right.
So he is other people just in like a visage.
Oh, yeah. So in a magical disguise.
Yeah. Centuries later, Dr. Edwin Lindsay, a noted archaeologist, ventures to Cambodia on an expedition to visit a hidden temple along with his benefactor, Paul Augustine.
They're exploring the legends of the hidden temple.
That benefactor turns out to be Pius, who disguised himself in order to accompany him and kill him.
What? Wait, why are we killing him now?
Here's the thing. I could not find out why this happens. It's there for a reason that I don't know. I don't know why he wants to kill Lindsay, other than Lindsay was looking for this and he got involved to keep him from finding it.
Like he's getting too close, so now he's a threat.
Right. That's the only thing I can think of, because there's no reason for Pius to be there beyond that. He already knows where it is.
Right.
So, but Lindsay survives. He doesn't kill Pius, but he manages to get away.
Oh yeah, there's no killing Pius, I'm assuming, at this point.
And he finds Elia's body. She's kind of like laid out in a weird way on this thing.
Wait, and so we're talking centuries later, I'm assuming.
Yeah, she is one of the few people who dies and still is like somebody classified her as a lich. Like she is the only other lich other than Pius.
Well, right. So she has this false heart.
Yeah.
Okay, that's keeping her alive. Okay.
Well, she's dead, but she's alive. Yeah.
A lich. She's a lich, like you said. She's dead, but living. Yeah, she's undead.
And finally, she can get rid of this.
Oh, man. Being undead sucks. I just want to be regular dead.
Yeah. She gives him the heart of Mantrock, which he eventually delivers to Edward a few weeks later, which he puts on his bookshelf, like behind a book. It's weird. And it's this big glass jar. Like, don't touch it. Like,
why wouldn't that? I mean, that sounds like it would be hidden a lot better in your pantry than it would be in your bookshelf.
Right.
1, 2. Like, isn't it rancid? Like, wouldn't it smell bad?
It's a magical artifact.
But you're assuming magic doesn't rot. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
And now we get to why the Roives family is actually involved in a lot of this.
Dun, dun, dun.
Alongside the struggle to claim these powerful artifacts of the ancients, the Roives family estate in Rhode Island holds secrets of its own. Dr. Maximilian Roives, a colonial ancestor of Alex and her grandfather, inherits the mansion from his father in Rhode Island and decides to investigate it.
Okay. Colonial.
Yeah, we're talking like the powdered wig and everything.
Okay, so
his weapons are flintlocks.
Okay, and he inherits a mansion?
Yeah.
So it was already there. So what year are we talking about, out of curiosity?
See, I wasn't going to talk about years, so I didn't write it down.
No, but I think I want to put it in the context of United States history, because I might as well use some of my junior high education to some good.
1760 is when his chapter takes place.
Okay, 1760. Okay. It is possible that there is a mansion in Rhode Island to inherit at that time. It's not completely,
right,
out of the blue. It's just rare. It is definitely rare, and it is definitely.
But I could see it.
The Roiveses are annoyingly old money. Annoyingly old money. Like, have a patent on the color turquoise. Old money. I just couldn't. Yeah.
As he's investigating, he soon finds a large cavern beneath the mansion containing an ancient city within called, I don't know how to pronounce this, Engah, and E-H-N.
E-H-N.
Apostrophe G-H-A.
I don't even know what language you're trying to pull that from, just because it sounds like it's not supposed to be pulled from at least anything that uses the typical...
Engah.
So it's Klingon? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
I want to do a Klingon thing on it, like Engah.
That's exactly where I go to.
Let's call it Engah.
Engah. That way we don't offend anybody who's not fictional. That's
he
fine.
Returns to the surface to get help, only to be considered delirious and is sent to an insane asylum for the rest of his life.
Wait, who gets his mansion then? Did he have adult children at that point?
Well, here's the thing. He's probably also sent there because... So here's the thing. There is this whole thing of he kills his servants.
I'm sorry, what?
But that's because a couple were bone thieves, which is this weird type of monster that can be like, I killed this person, I'm in their skin.
So like a skinwalker?
Yeah. And it looks like a bird type thing. It's weird.
So is this based on any kind of like Native American...
Oh, I have no idea.
Thing? Because I don't think skinwalkers are of the East Coast, if I remember of the lore.
So he there was at least one bone thief. And so he gets paranoid and starts killing people... Or there were more bone thieves than we see. There is some evidence that there was at least one more that we didn't kill, or one more that we didn't see in game, because when Alex finds this body eventually, it's missing its head.
Whoa.
Like bone thieves tend to do. It's like...
Oh, okay. So...
Yeah, it's...
That's a horrible way to end an indentured servitude term. Like,
there's also this idea that he was kind of... There's this one line of dialogue that's said later on about another Roives has been involved, blah, blah, blah. And the line basically implies that Pius and his people have influenced the trial or whatever that got him put in the insane asylum.
oh, okay. So at this point,
Or made him insane, because he definitely is ranting and mad
well,
by the time we do see him in the insane asylum. Like, he is yelling out the bars at nobody. Like,
so yeah, he's seeing things now. But I do want to at least preface this. Well, not preface this. I do want to at least color this with the idea that, sometimes somebody told me that sometimes the only response you have to something is to go crazy. Like, because something irrational has happened to you, there is no rational way to respond. And it is the only rational thing you can do is become irrational.
right.
So to essentially, first of all, discover... That's why I was suspicious about, like, he has a mansion in colonial era. Like, how early in colonial times are we talking about? Maybe you can have a mansion in 1760. It's not completely unheard of. But to essentially have, this established inheritance already at this point in the colonial history.
Old money.
Like, this is ridiculously old money. And also, probably... I hate to say it, but a lot of the people who colonized the North America were the people that were too weird to stay in Europe. Like, especially when it comes to the English colonizers. So for me, it just seems weird. Like, I feel like this mansion, like, kind of happened out of nowhere. Like, oh, I have a mansion now because my father left it to me. And it's like, but who built it? It's in Rhode Island. It's not like on like a farm with a bunch of servant. Like, is it on a big farm or plantation or something? Like it just feels like you shouldn't trust the origins of this mansion already.
I mean, it is built over an ancient city.
It's built over an ancient city, which also... It's not like it's in South America where I would believe that, because the way civilization was organized in South America with the Mayans and the Aztecs, they had urban areas. So an underground urban area in South America makes sense to me. That's not how North American natives like organize their cultures, from what I understand. And when we first started colonizing in North America, there was a huge plague that killed off... Like, it decimated tribes. There are whole, people that were wiped out by this plague. And then Europeans came by and were like, what's up? Can we take your land, yo? Like, that happened. And there were books literally written trying to explain, like, where Native American people came from. Where were all these mass graves? And the people didn't think to ask... the Native Americans, what happened? It's like, oh yeah, there's mass graves because there was a plague. Like,
right.
Squanto, who helped the Pilgrims, left his people and came back and they were all dead. And he was like, well, I guess I'm helping the Pilgrims now. Like, I have no one else to live for. So all of this, like, little nuggets of history that Safi has remembered is to say this mansion is... highly suspicious that any of this existed in any way, shape, or form. And this is the part that seems...
This is the part that got in your craw finally, huh?
This is the part where, it's hard for me to break... Like, I was like, oh, okay, I can kind of get into, like, ancient cities in this part of the world, ancient cities in this part of the world. Ancient city under... North American land in 1760? Like, that's what I'm like, this is super sus. What the heck is going on? Like, this just doesn't feel
all I can say
right
is
contextually.
go with it.
I mean, I'm gonna have to. I am, but I have a lot of. It doesn't make sense historically that it would happen like that. But again, maybe for all I know, like Manitouk burped and the city
burped, yeah.
Manitouk burped and the city was made. So I'm gonna have to roll with it.
Also, it's unknown when. Sorry, we're still on Maximilian here. It's unknown when, but he is the one who built the secret room that housed the Tome of Eternal Darkness when Alex finds it. We don't know when he does that, but he's the one who does that based on the chronology.
Maybe he made a secret room to hide himself to watch his servants.
I don't know.
That's my theory, but I don't know anything about this game other than what you're telling me right now.
In the middle of the 20th century, Dr. Edward Roives, a clinical psychologist at the time, inherits the estate.
So 3 centuries of wealth into this huge house. Is it like falling apart, or is it's well maintained?
Yeah.
So they're super rich.
There's even like an observatory in it and everything. And
so they're super rich.
Yeah.
Oh my! Okay. I could only dream of being that wealthy.
He is led to the secret room by Maximilian's ghost.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the weirdest thing that's happened in this game. There's an ancient city in North America underneath a mansion, so
where he finds the Tome of Eternal Darkness, obviously. He also has to contend with his servants being killed off by an assassin sent by the Ancients. It's literally called the vampire. Like, it just kills people by sucking their blood. But it doesn't look like a vampire. It looks like a weird thing.
They just call it a vampire because it functions like one. Okay.
Or at least the wiki calls it that. I don't remember what it's called in game. He fights it off and eventually finds his way also into the underground ancient city. And we're talking like that weird level of ancient where it's technologically super impressive compared to what people think of for the time.
Yeah.
So
that's true. They did have batteries back in like way
well,
back.
We're not talking batteries. We're talking like giant monoliths of stone that are hundreds of feet.
No, the reason why Ancient Aliens has an audience. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at least here they say it actually is aliens.
it Great. Just cue the meme.
Because here's the thing. We don't know the ancient history beyond our recorded history. And if these beings are that ancient, it could be previous civilizations even.
Yeah. I don't like in the real world what people suppose that, ancient civilizations couldn't have figured out how to do engineering on their own without ancient aliens.
I'm not talking like...
But this is a fictional story.
Well, first up, and also I think we're talking before stuff like the pyramids. We're talking before that type of construction. We're talking like Halo ancient humans going spacefaring.
No, and that's fair. I will accept that because, again, we're in a fictional universe.
Because somebody had to exile the ancients.
Right. That's true.
So Edward discovers that the city incorporates magic machinery and basically uses it to damage the city with a super powerful dispel magic spell.
So Edward...
Or damage spell. I can't remember which one.
Edward's like, this ain't right. I'm not cool with it. It's gotta go.
Right. But he knows that this isn't enough. Because he's only damaged the city. He hasn't stopped anything. He's only slowed it. Mm-hmm. So he decides to research what he can within the tome for the final battle. Decades later, Edward is assassinated by one of Pius's servants, which is where we started the game. And in fact, you can kind of, if you blink and you miss it, but if you actually watch the cutscene where he dies, you can see that he knows that it's coming.
Okay.
Like he looks up and knows it's coming, and he doesn't fight it, probably knowing that he has done at this point everything he can.
Right, exactly.
So finally we get to Alexandra Roives' chapter. Having learned all she can from the tome, she decides to finish the fight as best she can.
Okay.
Recovering the artifacts from within the mansion, she ventures down into the city and uses them with the city's machinery in order to summon a rival ancient to fight Pius's master.
Oh, okay.
Alex then engages Pius in combat, aided by the spirits of those who are written in the tome.
Nice.
Not all of them show up, because obviously some of them are still alive, but yeah, like Anthony shows up, and Ella shows up. And,
nice.
Yeah. Eventually, Alex impales Pius with his own staff and destroys the essence of the master, and the master is defeated in the cosmos by its rival. Sometimes it's kind of weird.
Wow.
Like, two of them get shredded, but like one of them, I can't remember which one, but one of them under the... So Xelatoth is the insanity one.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I think it's Ulyaoth, when they're fighting Xelatoth and when they lose, they just kind of like blast themselves in their head.
Oh, wow. Like a literal mind-blown moment.
Well, like it commits suicide because it's going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
After this happens, Edward's spirit quickly activates this mechanism to send the summoned ancient back before it can do any harm to the world.
Nice.
And after completing all 3 story paths,
yeah,
Edward Roives narrates a revelation. All 3 paths are revealed to have occurred simultaneously in separate timelines.
Wow.
One of Mantroc's spheres of influence happens to be chaos, and with it the ability to subtly manipulate time and space. It turned the other 3 ancients against one another in a mutual annihilation and merged the time streams into one complete victory. Now only Mantroc remains, and Mantroc is dying.
Right, because of the...
So the thing I don't like about that ending is we know that there's a 5th yellow-colored ancient that they mentioned in a developer interview, but that also just left room for a sequel that never happened.
Right.
So eventually, at one point, they were going to do Precursor to the Eternals or Shadow of the Eternals or something that was going to be a spiritual successor to Eternal Darkness.
Okay.
And that never got kickstarted. Like, I think it got like 10% or 18% or something like that.
Man.
Yeah. But this is a game that has like a cult following.
Oh, I believe it.
It does appear for a few years there in the late 2000s. Mm-hmm. It appeared on quite a few lists of horror games that need to have a comeback or a sequel or whatever. But that's where we're going to end it for this episode.
Oh, wow.
With humanity being saved by a bunch of humans, as happens when you have a happy ending in an H.P. Lovecraft story.
Rich, affluent, intelligent dudes. Once again,
I'll take the intelligent.
The day. Yeah, I mean, he had to be intelligent. Like, it's not, you can't, it wasn't like, oh, he just happened to be rich and have a house, but...
like, selfless people all over the place.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of selfless people left and right. And...
But this has been a long episode, and now you get to play this next week.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to remember. There was definitely a scene I remember of a character who was walking around, and I thought it was a woman, and thought it looked like she was of, ancient Egypt or of that era, of one of those cultures. And, like, she walks around, and because of how the gameplay messes with you, like, her limbs and head start popping off.
That happens.
So, wait, which character is that?
That's probably Ella.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a dancer, so it has that silky look that you might be misattributing to Egypt.
Okay. That explains why my memory is not good on that. So, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And I forgot you said that it's all... The timeline makes no sense if you
play it, you play as Pius first, which makes sense. You have to choose an ancient. Yeah. The next chapter is... I can't remember, it's Ella or Anthony, but either way, like, it's either Ella or Anthony, and then it's Anthony and Ella, but either way, whichever one it is, you're jumping through time and to places, and then you jump back, and it just gets confusing. It's easier to follow it by location.
Right.
Chronologically by location, which ends up being chronologically by which ancient is involved.
Exactly. Okay, that makes sense. So that I might have ended up playing Ella, like... I only played
She's one of the first couple chapters. Yeah.
Yeah. So I probably played her at some point.
So, but it's been a long time since you've played this, I think.
This was in college when the GameCube was king, and we played way too much Super Smash Brothers.
This one's a slower game, all things considered.
Yeah.
Next one's not going to be as slow, but it's going to be horror. So.
Ooh, spooky.
I think, anyway, I'm still looking into which game it's going to be. If it's the one I think it's going to be, I have a lot of diving to do.
Okay. Well, I'm cool with whatever you choose, except for if it's a stealth game or a platforming game, which...
Platforming horror sounds interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's possible.
We'll just do Binding of Isaac. It'll be fun.
Oh, no. Oh, come on. No. That's going to be not fun at all for anybody. No.
So, anyway, we will catch you guys next episode.
All right. Thanks
Or for streams. Yeah, we have streams every Thursday.
Yeah. Catch us. Either we're streaming Abduction or we're streaming the latest game that we covered on the Saturday before. So we hope to see you there on our YouTube. Otherwise, you heard all the other ways to follow us. Hope to hear from you soon, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.